In the rough suburbs of Detroit, a young man named Jake Lawson had just moved in with his father, Daniel, after leaving the city. Their new neighborhood was notorious for crime, and adjusting to this environment would be no easy task. Jake's first day at his new high school was a nightmare before he even stepped through the doors. A gang of local bullies led by Marcus, a tall and menacing figure, immediately targeted him. They mocked him, shoved him around, and made it clear he wasn't welcome. The harassment didn't stop once he got to class. Every time he sat down, he was forced to move by Marcus and his crew, and by the third time, Jake had had enough. Just as a fight was about to break out, their teacher, Mr. Sullivan, stormed into the classroom. "Sit down or leave my class. If you want to fight, do it somewhere else," he barked. Marcus sneered but backed off, promising Jake that their confrontation wasn't over. True to their word, Marcus and his gang cornered Jake during lunch, bringing reinforcements. But before they could lay a hand on him, another gang intervened. Rivalries ran deep in this school, and fights were common. That day, the two gang leaders faced off in a brutal one-on-one battle. The fight escalated quickly, with one of them pulling out a knife, but before any real damage could be done, teachers rushed in and broke it up. After surviving the school day, Jake faced another ordeal at home. His father had accumulated serious gambling debts, and that evening, two collectors showed up at their door. They didn't harm Jake, but their threats were clear. His father had 2 weeks to pay up, or things would get ugly. Later that night, Daniel returned home and asked about Jake's first day. Jake lied, saying everything was fine, but his father saw through it. When Jake finally admitted that debt collectors had come, Daniel's face fell with guilt. He promised to fix things and revealed that he had secured a high-paying job in another city. Until then, Jake would have to manage on his own. To ease his father's burden, Jake took a job as a dishwasher at a local restaurant owned by the parents of a classmate named Lily. But trouble followed him there too. One evening, Marcus and his gang walked in and decided to pick up where they left off. They shoved Jake to the ground, laughing. Something inside him snapped. He shot to his feet and knocked Marcus down with a powerful punch. The second bully fell soon after, but just as Jake was about to strike the third, an older man stepped in. The man, Jack Mercer, was a local boxing promoter. He had been watching the fight and was impressed by Jake's raw talent. Jack made an offer, $600 for an underground boxing match. Jake refused, demanding $1,250 instead. After some bargaining, Jack agreed. Lily, who had witnessed the exchange, was disappointed in Jake's decision to fight illegally. But he assured her it was a one-time deal. The next night, Jake arrived at the underground boxing venue. Jack introduced him to his trainer, Noah, a former fighter who would prepare him for battle. Noah warned Jake, "This ain't a fair game. There are no rules. You either survive, or you don't." Jake's first opponent was a feared fighter called Black Death, known for his brutal and dirty tactics. The crowd bet heavily against Jake. The fight was a bloodbath. Black Death landed illegal blows, elbows to the temple, punches to the groin, while the referee ignored it all. But Jake endured, waiting for his opponent to tire. When the moment came, he unleashed a storm of punches, knocking Black Death out cold. The crowd was stunned. Jake's victory caught the attention of Mr. Horn, the real boss of the underground circuit. When Jake went to collect his payment, Horn made another offer: more fights, more money. Jake refused, insisting he only wanted what was promised. But Horn had other plans. He revealed that the two debt collectors who had visited Jake's home worked for him. Even worse, Jake's father had started gambling again, and now owed Horn $155,000. The only way to clear the debt? Keep fighting. Jake had no choice. One night, after another brutal fight, Jake saw his classmate, Lincoln, being attacked in an alley. He jumped in to help, and together they barely escaped. Later, Lincoln revealed that he had a wife and kids, and like Jake, he was fighting to survive. Their bond grew, but tragedy struck when their mutual friend, Romano, was tricked into a rigged fight. His opponent, Shortcut, used a mysterious liquid on his gloves to blind him. By the time the fight was over, Romano was brain dead. Fueled by rage, Jake faced Shortcut next and made him pay. Using his own dirty tactics, he dismantled Shortcut in the first round. But the violence took its toll. Lincoln began experiencing symptoms of brain damage after repeated head injuries. Doctors warned him to take a break, but Horn had other plans. He wanted Lincoln to fight Jake. Lincoln, desperate to move to the professional level, agreed to the fight. Jake was furious but couldn't change his mind. The night of the match, Jake refused to fight back, taking Lincoln's punches without throwing any of his own. Horn was enraged. To force Jake to fight, he grabbed Lily and threatened her. Jake had no choice. He started hitting Lincoln, but only in the body, avoiding his head. Eventually, Lincoln realized the truth. Horn didn't care about them, only money. He chose to quit the fight. Furious, Horn stepped into the ring and sucker punched Lincoln, sending him crashing out of the ropes. That was the final straw. Jake challenged Horn to a bare-knuckle fight. If Jake won, Horn would clear his father's debt. If Horn won, Jake would be his fighter forever. Horn, a former world champion, had experience on his side, but Jake had learned how to fight smart. He let Horn land a few punches, breaking one of his fingers in the process. Then, Jake exploited Horn's temper, taunting him until he lost focus. With perfect timing, Jake faked an injury to lower Horn's guard, then delivered a devastating combination of punches, knocking him out cold. The underground arena erupted in chaos. Horn lay unconscious on the mat, and his enforcers scrambled to revive him. Jake, bloodied but standing tall, turned to the crowd. For the first time, they weren't just spectators, they were witnesses to Horn's downfall. Jack Mercer, who had been watching from the sidelines, nodded approvingly. "You made a lot of enemies tonight, kid," he muttered. Horn eventually regained consciousness, groggy and humiliated. He had no choice but to honor the deal. Jake's father's debt was erased, but Horn's final words sent a chill down Jake's spine. "This ain't over," he snarled. "You don't just walk away." Knowing he had made a powerful enemy, Jake grabbed Lincoln, who was barely conscious, and helped him out of the arena. They needed to disappear, fast. Jake and Lincoln went into hiding, avoiding any place Horn's men might look for them. Lily convinced her parents to let Jake stay in their spare room, while Lincoln found refuge with a former coach who had once fought under Horn but left the underground world behind. The weeks that followed were tense. Horn's men searched the city, interrogating anyone who might know Jake's whereabouts. One night, Jake spotted a suspicious car parked near Lily's restaurant. He knew they were getting closer. To make matters worse, Daniel had gone missing. He wasn't answering calls, and no one had seen him for days. Jack Mercer reached out with a warning. "Horn's not gonna forget what you did. If you really want to get out, you gotta finish this, for good." Jake's worst fears came true when he finally found his father, in one of Horn's illegal gambling dens. Daniel had gambled away his freedom, and now he was working for Horn as a debt collector. "I had no choice, Jake," Daniel pleaded. "They would have killed me." Jake's anger boiled over. "You promised to stop. You lied to me." Horn, who had been watching the confrontation from his office, stepped out with a smirk. "Told you, kid. You don't just walk away." Horn made one final offer, one last fight, the biggest in underground history. If Jake won, Horn would not only let him and his father go but also shut down his illegal operations. If Jake lost, he'd belong to Horn forever. Jake had no choice. The venue for the fight was bigger than anything Jake had ever seen. This wasn't just about money, it was about Horn proving he was still in control. The opponent? A monstrous ex-professional named Ivan, the executioner, Markov, a ruthless fighter with a reputation for sending men to the hospital. Noah, Jake's trainer, prepared him for the most brutal fight of his life. "This ain't about strength," he told Jake. "It's about endurance. Make him tire himself out. Then finish him." The night of the fight, the arena was packed. Lily, Lincoln, and even Jack Mercer were there, watching anxiously. The first round was pure hell. Ivan hit like a truck, breaking 2 of Jake's ribs with body shots. Blood dripped from Jake's nose, but he didn't fall. He absorbed the punishment, just like Noah had taught him. Round after round, Ivan swung wildly. But Jake dodged, letting him waste his energy. By the 5th round, Ivan's punches had slowed. That's when Jake struck. A devastating left hook sent Ivan stumbling. A right cross shattered his jaw. And with one final uppercut, Jake put Ivan down. Horn watched in disbelief as the referee counted. When the number 10 was called, the arena erupted. Jake had won. Horn tried to go back on his word, but Jack Mercer had anticipated this. Before the fight, he had tipped off the police about Horn's operations. Moments after Jake's victory, sirens wailed, and officers stormed the venue. Horn was arrested, along with many of his enforcers. The underground circuit was dismantled. Jake and Lincoln were finally free. Daniel, ashamed of his actions, promised to turn his life around. For the first time, Jake believed him. With the fight money, Jake left the underground world behind and pursued legitimate boxing, eventually making it to the professional scene. But he never forgot where he came from, or the price he paid to escape.